Okay, so we're looking at the higher purchase, and I'm sure you've heard of this higher purchase before. So I want you to share your views about it, then maybe I'll come in with specific details of higher purchase. Yeah, professors, any idea as to what higher purchase is? You hire purchase. Okay, so let's hear you.
So it's a method of buying goods through installment payments.
Okay, I think I love the
So,
installment. I love the installment, but buying goods, I would have preferred if you qualified the specific goods. Okay, I think I'll take it there. Okay. Della, then, do you have anything to add?
So please, I'm trying.
Sure, try, don't
So
worry.
I think the agreement is to hire goods, um, and then the customer has the option to like pay after an agreed sum.
Okay, okay, okay. So I just wanted you to qualify the goods. Most of the goods under this arrangement are fixed assets. Okay. Uh, um, you cannot use a hire purchase for perishable goods like tomatoes, onion, pepper. No. Okay. It's used for non-perishable fixed assets. Okay. So that's the bit I wanted to rectify there. So it is an arrangement where a firm goes into agreement with the seller, okay, of a fixed asset, as I indicated, okay, to purchase by paying an initial deposit. So before the installment payment comes in, there is an initial deposit. Okay. There's an initial deposit that is made before you pay the small installment. So for example, if the price of the say car is 20,000 Ghana cedis, the person can tell you pay 5,000 Ghana cedis, and then um, the remaining is spread over, let's say, 5 years, right? So there's an initial payment before you now pay in those installments. And like Della Dem said, the business has the opportunity to buy the asset at the end of the agreement. One unique feature or one unique thing too is that um, the ownership of the asset is not transferred until the agreement, okay, is over and that the hirer, okay, or the person hiring the equipment has fully paid and bought the asset. Okay, so that is a bit about hire purchase. Let's put something down. So it's a type of financing agreement. It's a type of financing agreement where a business hires an asset with the option to purchase it at the end agreement. So is that arrangement where you initially hire the thing, okay, with the option to purchase it at the end of the agreement. So it involves making an okay, Bella, you can go ahead with the question.
Sir, so I want to ask, since the like I don't know how to put it. Since the let me say supplier has given like the goods out to like the customer on like the basis where like the customer has paid part payments or something. So if the customer like is not able to pay everything, is a collateral demanded or like yeah, say please how is that?
Okay, so in hire purchase agreement, there is no collateral or security, right? Likewise, the business that has hired that equipment cannot also use it as a collateral to secure any loan. Let me give an example. If I go to Melcom and I buy a laptop, okay, on hire purchase, what it means is that they'll give me the laptop. Let's say it's 2,000 Ghana cedis. They'll ask me to make an initial deposit, say 500, and then the 1,500 is spread over 10 months. So every month I'll pay 156. Okay, so I cannot claim ownership of the laptop because I have not finished paying the installment, right? Likewise, I cannot use that laptop to go to another person and say, oh, I have this laptop, so give me 1,000 Ghana cedis. Okay, so there is no collateral arrangement in hire purchase. Likewise, the business can also not use a hired equipment as collateral for loans. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, so we say it involves making an initial deposit and regular installment payment to the seller. Ownership of the assets is transferred only at the end of the hire purchase agreement. So in the example I gave, Melcom would only transfer ownership of the laptop after I finish paying for the 150 installment for 10 months, right? Okay. Yes, Adam.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, if it isn't, it's basically isn't the business right now, I should say, basically just buying the okay with the example you give, you use the laptop, aren't you just buying the laptop because you are not going to use it, like the ownership is not given to you after you pay. So basically you are just buying.
Sorry, Della, I'm struggling to hear you. If you can increase the voice volume.
Increase, like,
Yes, I'm listening.
okay. So I was asking, isn't the business basically just buying the asset? Like
Oh,
ownership isn't given to them until after the full payment is.
yes. Okay, if I got your question, you mean that the business is buying the asset. So why is ownership only transferred at the end of the agreement?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if you can type in the chat. I'll be so grateful. But I'll try to speak to what I heard. Okay, so listen, you can have a hire purchase agreement where, okay, let me use the laptop again. The laptop is 2,000 cedis, right? We spread the cost for you over 10 months. You pay like 6 months and you say, oh, in fact, I'm not interested anymore. So then you can, the seller will come for the asset because you don't own the asset until you have finished paying. So you see, most of the banks use this agreement, especially with these money counting machines, the computer they use, printers. Most of them are not owned by the bank. It is under the hire purchase arrangement. So they get these assets from these hire companies, and then they pay them bit by bit that installment. If they feel that okay, these computers are good, we want to own them, okay, then they finish paying the installment payment or the installment at the stated duration before they can claim ownership of those equipment. Okay. Okay, I think the question has dropped in the chat. Let me see. I want to ask why the ownership is given to the business until after full payment. Yes, because you haven't fully paid for the asset, so you can't claim ownership. That's a simple response I can give. It's like you buying a land. The land is worth 50,000 Ghana cedis. You have only made an initial deposit of 10,000 Ghana cedis. You can't claim ownership of such an asset because you have not fully compensated the seller. Okay, so ownership under this arrangement is only transferred when you have fully compensated the seller. Okay, Della.
Sir, so in the case of the land, is it like, are you talking about the document aspect, like they haven't transferred like ownership to you by document? Because like in modern Ghana, people purchase land, start a project on it, even though they might be under hire purchase. And so with that, the person like has already started something on the land, and then you are saying ownership is supposed to be at the end of the entire payment. So please clarify that.
Okay, so let me say this so that when you buy a land on hire purchase agreement, so what happens is the land is 50,000 Ghana cedis, but the seller allows you to pay 10,000 Ghana cedis. And yes, you can start developing on it because the understanding between the seller and the buyer is that you would continue to pay the installment payment and fully pay the 50,000 Ghana cedis within an agreed time. It is only when you have fully paid that you can claim full ownership of the land. Yes, you might be developing on the land, but trust me, if you default payment, okay, if you default payment on the agreement, the seller has every right to claim ownership of the land. And that one, whatever you have developed, is either you demolish it, or if you find a reasonable seller, he or she may compensate you for that development you have done on the land. But if you don't see through to finishing the payment for the land, you cannot claim ownership of the land. So for example, you have just paid 20,000 out of the 50,000. and you want to tell people that, yes, I own this land. That is not legally right. Okay. So that's the bit about this arrangement. You can only claim ownership of the land only when you have fully paid. So let me give another example. These taxi drivers, some of them acquired a vehicle on hire purchase. They have a specific term they use. Let's work and pay. That's how they call it, work and pay. So they get the car. They sometimes make some initial deposits, and then maybe weekly or monthly they pay some installments until about a year to complete, payment of the car. The issue is the car owner at the time, until you have fully paid for the car, can tell you, Charlie, bring my car, because you have not fully paid for it. Okay. So even though the taxi driver will be using the car for his businesses to earn money, it doesn't mean he's the owner of the car. No, he's not the owner of the car. He cannot sell the car. So if you have ever witnessed or experienced such a thing, no taxi driver who is doing work and pay has the audacity to sell the car, because the car is not for you. Okay, so if you buy a land under hire purchase, you cannot sell it. You cannot sell it to another person. No, especially when you have not fully paid. Okay, I don't know if I have put in things in perspective.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, professors? Let me say I appreciate your responses and input so far. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, now you see, let's try to compare trade credit to hire purchase, and you see that there's a difference between the two. You see, for trade credit, ownership is transferred immediately. The buyer takes delivery of the goods, right? For example, if I come and take your 3 baskets of tomatoes that I'm going to sell, when I finish, I'll come and pay you. Immediately, I carry the tomatoes away to my shop. I am the owner of that tomatoes, so I can decide to do whatever I want to do with it, right? But under hire purchase, ownership is not transferred immediately. It is only when you have finished making payment. Another difference is that trade credits arrangement can be used for any type of goods, right? But hire purchase is used for non-perishable goods or fixed assets. Okay, you cannot sell or buy tomatoes under hire purchase. No, it's not possible, right? So it's normally for non-perishable fixed assets. Okay, let's look at the other forms of short-term loans. So we also have loans from friends and relatives, loans from friends and relatives. I think this one is more self-explanatory. Excuse me, professors. Then you can have loans from money lenders. This is another dangerous source of. And then you have short-term bank loans, and we also have a bank overdraft. So these are few short-term sources of finance. So you can take a loan from a friend for say 3 months or 5 months, or you can borrow from, as you know, MTN Quick Loan. I know it's so popular. We have these apps, these lending apps, money lending apps like Fido, And we even have this popular one, bills. I don't know. It used to be called quick credit. Please, are you aware of that money lending business? Quick credit, now called bills. Oh, my professors are not current with what is happening in the country. I think the CEO, some past months celebrated his birthday, and it was, a hit in town. Okay, so these are short-term sources of loans, right? Okay. Okay, now let's look at the long-term sources. Now you see the medium term actually is based on the fact that from 1 year to 2 years, okay, within that short duration. So either one year, 3 months, 1 year, 5 months, 1 year, 6 months, okay, you are expected to pay, right? So most of such sources of finance or facilities are just created by the labeling that is a medium. So it could be a medium-term loan from a friend, a medium-term loan from a money lender, okay, or a medium-term loan from a bank, right? So we will not stress ourselves much with the medium-term sources, right? So we'll go straight ahead to the long-term sources of finance, long-term sources of finance. So the long-term, the first one we'll be looking at. So let me go to long-term sources. So we need to define long-term sources. Now, in some books, you see that these are sources of funds from which funds generated are expected to be paid after 5 years. So they put the timing ceiling at 5 years. But I think sometimes it depends on where you find yourself, right? Sorry, professors. I'm having some small cough, so pardon me if you hear. Okay. And in some books, you see long-term financing referring to funding that is required for a prolonged period or typically exceeding 1 year. Okay, so I say it depends on where you find yourself and what the timelines are for long-term sources of loans. So in Ghana, long-term loans or long-term financing, spans beyond 5 years. You could even have some coming as low as 3 years. It's only repayable after 3 years. Okay, or you have 3 years to pay or 5 years to pay. So we'll use the definition of exceeding 1 year because whether 3 years or 5 years, it is more than 1 year. Okay. So let's write. These are sources of finance from which funds generated are repayable beyond 1 year. Okay, so the funds are repayable beyond 1 year. So you have more than a year to pay such facility or funding. So we'll look at examples, but I think I would let my professors go and read and search more on the long-term sources of funds. We have some few minutes to end our class. But I think I'll recap what we have discussed today. Something small. For theory subjects, I prefer learning small, okay, grasping it before you add more. If you learn plenty at a time, you would confuse your brain. So we started with sources of financing for businesses, right? And we saw that this refers to the various means through which a business gets resources or capital or funds to run its operations. Now, examples of them we have seen: hire purchase, trade credit, bank loans, whatever. But we want to specifically group them based on repayment period, the duration within which you have to pay. So we can have short term, medium term, and long term. Okay, and the other source or the other classification is based on the origin. Is the money coming internally or externally? The internally here would look at, is it coming from the owners or members of the business? Okay, and externally means it's coming from people who are not members or owners of the business. So dear professors, I think I'll pause here. I need to be at my headmaster administration's office for some discussion. So I'll end here. I'll urge you to read more on the long-term sources. Hopefully when we meet next week, we'll deal with that and finish this topic and take on communication in business. If there are questions, I'm ready to answer them before I end the class. Okay, there are no questions. So I believe my professors are so sure about what a trade credit is, what hire purchase is, especially on the part of claiming ownership and the hire purchase. You can only claim ownership when you have finished paying all that is left under the arrangement at the end of the agreement. Okay, so thank you very much, professors. Enjoy the rest of your day and take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.